Welcome to another live episode of Halftime Adjustments. Your host, Adrian Peterson, my man, G Witt.
Tighten up, baby.
Tighten up. What's up, fellas?
Tighten up, baby. What's going on?
Tighten up, guys. What's up? Wait, we full out go now in football 2022 for the Tennessee Titans and the NFL. Lots been going on, guys, this week. The schedule came out on the 12th. Very, very tough schedule once again. And you got another murderous row like we had last year, G with that schedule with Green Bay and Kansas City and Cincinnati. And man, I'm telling you, it's
Denver.
It's gonna be an ugly road there come that time of year. But before we get into that, let's talk about some things that's happened since the last show, fellas. So the rookies hit the field, and so what have we been hearing so far? We saw that Treylon Burks had a little issue with conditioning, which you expect that the guys have been at the college tempo for the last 3-4 years, whatever it might be. And now is you got a different level of football, G Witt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that always gets them, man, is just the intensity of the practices. And again, they haven't really gotten into it. They were just basically doing some fundamental stuff. But the pace of the practice is probably what got them more than anything else. Even though you had some guys that actually shined and some guys that struggle. Burks having conditioning issues, that stood out, but you don't know what really caused that because, he came back the second day and was fine. So, it could have been something he ate or anything like that, so you just never really know. But what you saw, everybody was high on Pitts on the first day, but then you hear on the second day he didn't do as well. So, it's just the typical ups and downs of rookies. You've had some good guys come in. The guy, I forgot his name, out of Tennessee. Seems to be
Jackson.
going pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We might see him more sooner than later as far as special teams and things like that is concerned because he's not afraid of tackling and he's got a lot of energy behind him. And Vrabel seems to like him simply because he had a workout in the rain and he didn't back away from it. He went ahead and did it. But overall, I thought really the fact that you had 17 undrafted free agents, you had 4 of your second-year guys that were able to attend the mini camp with the rookies and everything. And I thought that having all the rookie draft picks in there was really good. It was a big group. So you got to see a lot. And it's going to be interesting this year, man. It's going to be interesting with this rookie class because we don't know what we're going to get. And I will tell you right now, with the exceptions of maybe Malik Willis and Burks, man, everybody's got to be on their P's and Q's, man, because you don't know. Somebody may come through as an undrafted free agent and take your spot.
Right. And Jay Lou, we had a question right off the bat. Alan Newman, he said, "What are our thoughts on Treylon Burks' first day?" And G, we kind of alluded to it, but what's your thoughts about that young man, Jay Lou?
Hey man, as a Tennessee resident for my entire life who has asthma, those allergies were something different Friday. Yeah. I think my man everybody was like, "Well, he's from Arkansas." Blah, blah. I think part of it was, Ed, you played sports, G, which you've been around your whole life. Sometimes you can get so hyped up that you overhype yourself up. And I think he was just so anxious for day one that he just struggled getting his breath and getting that anxiety out. So it was good to see him bounce back because, the young man has a ton of pressure, fair to him or not, that's on him because of, what went down with him getting here. So I think you saw a little bit of, like G Witt said, getting into NFL type practice, you mix in that white pollen that was falling from the sky Friday and all that. So it was good to see him come back. And from all accounts, from the little videos and the reporters that were there Saturday, looked like he showed well. So it'll be really interesting once they get the veterans in. I think in June. I'm really. Would you say, G Witt?
Actually, they come in Monday.
Oh, okay. So the veterans come in with him tomorrow. I think the tight end is going to be must-see TV for us. I really think he's going to fit the mold that what we missed from Jonnu last year. If you watch the show after the draft, I think we all said that Mr. Theo Jackson, the hometown kid, was going to be that Cruikshank weapon the team, and the writing's on the wall. I think you're going to see some big things for him. Love to see Malik Willis get out there. Of course, the quarterback is the sexy position, so he's going to get all over. But again, I'll tell every fan, relax, when Tannehill throws his first interception, relax. You don't want Malik Willis playing week one.
At all.
It ain't time for him to play. You want him to sit and learn and go from there. So it was just nice to really see some football over the past couple of days.
Yeah, it was nice to see the guys on the field, as you mentioned. You made a great point about Treylon Burks. A lot of weight is on that young man's shoulders. He's got to, fair or not, he's got to fill the shoes of AJ Brown, and that's what he's going to be compared to until he does something that is greater than what AJ Brown did when he was here. I mean, like I said, it's not fair to him because he was brought in his position, but how he was brought here is all the difference. So, it was a great time. And you mentioned Kyle Phillips, G Witt, which I think is going to be another steal along with the tight end from Maryland. I think they really found some players right there. And don't be surprised, and I'm going to get his name here just a minute, the undrafted free agent out of SMU, the receiver. Yeah. Watch out for him too. A good route runner, good size receiver. Yeah, he's like a 4'4" guy with good size. And so, I think, again, we might have found some diamonds in the rough. And I like your take on Theo Jackson, J. Lou. Again, you saw him on TV, man. He looked a lot bigger than what they said he was. And so a long kid that can run and, hometown. And, what better way to play your career, start your career in your hometown of Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah. And so let's get into this. Well, one more thing real quick. Got a couple more items real quick. So let's talk about the mentor comment. We hadn't talked since this came out about 10 years. A lot of it was blown up, J. Lou, man. What is your take on it? Because I know some folks are going to ask about it tonight on the show. But what is your take on the mentoring aspect from Tannehill's viewpoint?
I think Tannehill answered that question like you want your starting quarterback to answer it. The question, again, wasn't, are you going to be a good teammate? It was, are you going to mentor him? And the last time I checked, the Titans pay at least 3 folks on the coaching staff whose job would be to get Mr. Malik Willis ready. Now, is Tannehill going to show him some things in the classroom? Absolutely. From all things we've heard from Tannehill, a veteran, phenomenal teammate. I mean, you heard Malik Willis say he had the guys over at his house. Right. But I think this was we talk about Burks coming in with weight on his shoulders. Tannehill has a lot of weight on his shoulders. He came out and talked a lot about, he had to go to therapy after that bye. He took the loss just as hard as us fans did. He probably sees the writing on the wall as his last year. And I think the media was just, using that last game against him, the Titans drafting the quarterback and those comments. Because if you just go back to a few years ago, Brett Favre made the same type of comments. Aaron Rodgers has made the same type of comments when they drafted his replacement. So I think you want to hear that type of comment as a competitor. If he would have came out and said, yeah, I'm going to mentor the young guy, right? Like, well, wait a minute, Tanny. No, we want you to be a competitor and compete. So I think it was just a case of the NFL owning the offseason, and there was nothing else to talk about.
Right. So, G, will you agree overblown or should there be concern?
Oh, it's overblown, man. Look, as a longtime NFL fan, that happens every season. Every time a starting quarterback, I will tell you like this. Mm-hmm. I agree with J. Lou. You want to see that competitive come out in Ryan Tannehill because I always go back to the Drew Brees situation when he was with the Chargers. He was with the Chargers. He had a bad year. They drafted Phillip Rivers. Drew Brees basically said, Phillip Rivers got to come in and take my job. I'm not giving it to him. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's what you want to see out of your starting quarterback. You want to see them. He's going to be a good teammate. He's going to help him along the way. He's going to show him some things like you said, J. Lou, in the classroom. He may talk to him a little bit on the field during practice, but his job is to be the starting quarterback. Vrabel even made it even more succinct than everybody else. He said, hey, look, everybody, we tried to build competition in every position. And I tell the guys, because it was the same way when I was a player. I watched the draft every year because I wanted to see who they were drafting to take my spot. And my job was to go out there and keep my spot. So that's what he wants from Tannehill. That's what he wants from all the players. I mean, Jeff Swain has got to come with it because I don't care, and Austin Hooper because our rookie tight end from Maryland may come in and take their spot. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with Derrick Henry. Right. Granted, he's the king. It's going to be hard to do, but they drafted Hassan Haskins to come in and be Derrick Henry Part 2. Yeah. So Derrick Henry's got to come in, and the King is already putting in his work. He did post a few videos and everything, but that's what you want from your team. You want them to be competitive. I think it got overblown, and really, when you go back to it, I'm gonna finish up and let you go, Eddie. When it comes down to it, they just took a sound bite.
Yes, that's what all it was.
Yeah. It was a sound bite. But when you go back and you listen to the entire answer to the question, that soundbite was just a part of it. He already said, if he learns from me, we learn from each other, we're going to do whatever's best for the team. But, when you go back and listen to the entire interview, no, man, it got overblown. And it's overblown when Jeff Van Gundy is going to say something during a playoff game. And he
basketball.
Basketball. Yeah, and you think about him. He wasn't the best coach out there, man, to be talking about being a good teammate and everything. Come on now.
Right. And so, and I agree with both of you, man. Overblown. What you hope comes out of this situation is Tannehill just plays lights out. Exactly. And that he feels the heat on his neck and not comfortable in his position. And so, he ain't
comfortable right now.
No, and he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be. Not after the way the season ended, and not after the outcome of the draft, and just a lot of things on the table. He's got more weapons added to the offense now. I'm not saying due to the fact that AJ Brown's gone, that was the major loss. And Julio Jones didn't work out, but he's got, I'm gonna say, more weapons now at this point, anyway, on paper, until we see what they actually do than he did last year. And we will see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. Offensive line is still a big question mark for the offense from my standpoint, but we'll see what happens as we go along. And so, you kind of teed it up for my next little question for y'all. So it was another article that came out, and I know you guys saw it, man. And they were talking about Derrick Henry. Is he on the decline coming into this season? They put up an interesting stat about his break tackle percentage and has gone down over the last 5 years. Matter of fact, they weren't even double digits last year, but you got to take into account too that he only played a handful of games during the season and then, a playoff game. And so G Witt, man, is Derrick Henry on the decline? I know that we probably should not see him with 250 carries this season. I don't think it'll be good for him, but we'll see what happens when he comes out. But G Witt, is Derrick Henry on the downside of this career, this string of years he's put together these last 3 or 4 years where he's been one of the best, if not the best, running back in the NFL?
Well, if you listen to Fred Taylor on the pivot, he's already said he's the best running back in the league right now. Mm-hmm. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But look, let's be honest about it. Do we want to see Derrick Henry have 250 carries before October is over with? No. We don't want to see that. That's the reason why they drafted Hassan Haskins, because they need that replacement. And they want to get somebody young who they can groom to eventually take his spot. Derrick Henry's a running back. Running backs traditionally have started to decline as they get closer to 30. Mm-hmm. Now, I would say the one player that was the opposite of that was Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson, he was one who kept it up even after coming back from a major knee injury. But I would say this, you have to wait and see about Derrick Henry because we don't know. Is it going to be tougher for him this year? Absolutely. Because one thing about it, he is the focal point of the offense completely this season because A.J. Brown is gone. Mm-hmm. So until those receivers and tight ends make themselves a viable threat to where defenses have to account for them, they're going to focus mainly on Derrick Henry. You're going to see you're going back to the 9-10 men in the box situation. And until Tannehill and those receivers and tight ends, until they start making themselves threats to where defenses have to account for them, that's just what you're going to see. So, it's going to be tough sledding for him, I believe. But I also believe that he's going to be just as good. I think, you're still looking at 1,500 to 1,800 yards this season. Yeah,
and you got to take into account, too, that he missed like 8 games last year. And so he's still he still hadn't had as much wear and tear as he could have had. And I agree with you, Chris Sharp. I'm not counted out either until I see him decline. And J. Lou, we kind of talked about a little bit. What is your take, man? What on the king, the beast?
Yeah, man. I think the draft was to save the king because this team knows they go as he goes. Mm-hmm. And one thing, we talked about it with Tannehill. We got to remember the king is a professional football player who breeds off competition. So he hears all the talk right now that the best running back in the league plays in Indianapolis.
That's right. Right.
I'm pretty certain that the King has that running on a loop as he's doing these 2,000-pound workouts that he's doing, and he's going to come back with a point to prove something because everybody is counting him out. And I just think he's built differently from even mentally. I think he's mentally built different than most backs. Again, we're not talking about a ligament or something that type of issue. We were talking about a broken bone, which, from all accounts, from looking at his workout stuff, that thing looked like it's unhealed up.
Right.
Because his workouts are still ridiculous. So I think now again, you're hoping that the Titans understand the wear and tear that they've had on him. And I think it was a blessing in disguise with him getting hurt last year. Because the truth be told, my running back that came in, Foreman came in and proved that you probably can have the same type of back. And let's just be honest. G Witt talked about the guy we drafted. Oh, what's my guy that ain't on the team no more? The running back,
Evans.
Evans, yeah. We were waiting on him for 3 years to be the change of pace back in the backup. We put Foreman in there, who's a Derrick Henry light, and realized, wait a minute, this might be the way we need to go. So it was good to see them draft that type and have. When you got the same type of running back, you're not having to change your system. You're just taking the wear and tear off the King. And the one difference between the King and everybody else, he still is good to go for 70 or 80 yards on one play. And you keep that longer in the year, the fresher you keep him. So I'm waiting to see him. I think he has a major comeback this year.
I do too. And like I said, I like the additions that they've added. And I still think they're going to add a veteran receiver, although when we saw Landry go to the Saints this past week, but I do think they still add something to the wide receiver room to kind of round that out. Somebody, and y'all know, we kind of talked about it, man. I just got that feeling it's gonna happen. I'm not even gonna say it right now. I'm just gonna hold off on that comment. And so Will says, how long do we think it's gonna take Tannehill to get good chemistry with his new additions? And so I think it's very important that we see everybody at minicamp. I know Derrick Henry probably won't be there, but if Tannehill's there with all the new receivers, I know Robert Woods is probably going to be limited in some capacity, but if he can get those guys there, I think we see some good chemistry. Because you think about last year, AJ Brown was hurt a lot during camp, OTAs, Julio Jones was hurt. And so there wasn't a good time where they had a lot of chemistry on the field. You saw it against Seattle, you had both of them playing, you had everybody playing, but they were, the offensive line was short. And then you saw it right there in the playoffs that, what could have been if we didn't have the turnovers. And so I just think it's going to take some time. If they all show up for OTAs, I think the chemistry will be good.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jay. I don't disagree with you. Ryan Tannehill, like you said earlier, he's under a lot of pressure this season. As you said, he's probably looking at this being his last one, but he definitely wants to make up for what happened. The thing is, you want to make sure that he doesn't press and makes matters worse. But I think one of the things he's going to really work on is getting chemistry with the receiver core that they brought in. Because I saw an article which made perfect sense if you stop and think about it. One thing J-Rob has done is gone back to try to find the receivers similar to what we had when we made that playoff run to the AFC Championship game. You have an Adam Humphries type. You have another A.J. Brown type, and if Robert Woods come through, you got another Corey Davis type. You got all these receivers who can make these plays. The question is going to be, can Robert Woods get healthy enough in the mini camps and in training camp to be effective starting at the beginning of the season? Because that was the biggest problem you had the whole season, was the fact that you just didn't have healthy receivers consistently throughout the year. And right. I mean, and even then, even when you had both Julio Jones and A.J. Brown on the field, it was boom or bust with either one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm rewatching the Seattle game, and A.J. Brown was dropping passes left and right. And Julio Jones was catching pretty much everything, although he had a couple of drops. So, it's just one of them things that we hope can work out. Again, with what we got going on right now with our defense, the offense may have a little time to get it together, but, not a lot, but we'll see. But I just think it's going to be interesting for Tannehill. He's got a lot of work to do this year. He's got a lot of work.
J. Lou, and I'm gonna let you get your words in, man. But here's the thing for me, guys, that's gonna be the telltale sign. Will Vrabel decide to not practice his guys during camp? Because so, but you bring up that Seattle game, and I was watching it too, and Derrick Henry was tired early. It was a lot of guys huffing and puffing. That's week 2. Yeah, that's week 2. We saw how they looked in week 1, but then week 2, you still have that same conditioning issue. So will he learn from last year, and have those guys in more game type situations and have them in those preseason games? You only get 3 with this new format, and so and we saw how it took a toll on this offense last year in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I think the one good thing this year. You hate having only 8 home games and 2 extra preseasons, but I think with them going back-to-back weeks doing joint practices will probably help a little bit more, because we all know they'll simulate a lot more there than they will the preseason games, right, especially with the ones, when we talk about the ones. But that question about the good chemistry, I'm going to flip it. I'm not worried about the skill players as much as I'm worried about that offensive line and the chemistry with that O-line. So this is where I'm hoping, and it won't happen, but I'm hoping behind closed doors that the Titans have some kind of idea by, the second week of training camp, or third week, of who that 5 they're going to put on the field September 11th is, because that's who you want Tannehill to have more of the chemistry with. Catching the balls and all, that'll come, but if we can't protect him and get the right calls, then it's going to be a long season. So, and, we talked about that Seattle game. You had, that was the game that Taylor mysteriously tore his knee up in warm-ups, and then Big Raj went out. So Tannehill, at the beginning of that game, you saw him doing a lot of running. So that's the one team. Again, he's got PTSD from these hits. That's the one unit I think I'd rather him see develop some chemistry with, and then we go to the skill players.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I won't be surprised, and we'll see how it goes in camp, that the rookie out of Ohio State doesn't get the nod at right tackle. But we'll see. We'll see what happens as we go along. So let's
y'all just don't have no faith in the guy from last year, do you?
Honestly, I see him more as a guard.
More sold on left guard with him, and the more I look at it.
And and I'm not. So you got to give him his props though. What he did against Bosa, he did a really good job against Bosa. And so I'm not saying he can't, but and he's also played solid at guard too. So I don't know. We'll see. It's a long season. We're just not getting started. So.
Well, to J. Lou's point, they definitely got to have it done. I would say at least no later than the second preseason game.
Yes.
That's because you got to have at least 2 preseason games with that old line settled and everybody knowing what they're supposed to do. You're still going to have your issues, but I think it's good that Dylan got to practice, got to play in the regular season last year.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm thinking, so the speed of the game is not a surprise to him. So let's just see what happens, man. But Aaron Bruin playing the left guard is not a bad spot, and you still got your guy from Seattle. So that like you said, Jones. It's going to be key to settle that offensive line down, and I think no later than that second preseason game.
No doubt. So let's get into the schedule, guys. We're going to break down the first quarter schedule. That's the first 4 games for the 2022 campaign for the Tennessee Titans. So they open up at home against the New York Football Giants at 3:25 p.m. That's unusual time. Usually it's it's a noon game for the home opener. But hey, we'll take it. The Giants come off a 4-13 season with a new head coach, Brian Dayball. And who is Brian Dayball, you ask? He used to be the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills for the past 4 years. So you already know what he wants to do. He wants to have that high octane type offense. Don't think he has the receivers to do that. But Danny Dimes, J. Luke, one of your guys that you like, he's got an arm. He's mobile. He's got good strength, but he can also get himself into trouble trying to press too hard. Offensive coordinator Mike Kafka spent the last 5 seasons as assistant coach under Andy Reid. So you already know the mindset of this team. You got a head coach that was with a high octane offense. You got an offensive coordinator that real gimmicky type offense with guys. Saquon coming off a torn ACL, missed 14 games. They did pick up Matt Breida from the Bills in the offseason, who's got a lot of breakaway speed. But this team, I don't know what you get off of offense, because it doesn't have the receivers that you would think they need to run the type of offense like that. They did add an offensive line, Evan Neal, one of the best tackles in the draft. They had Kayvon Thibodeau, 2 of the top 10 players in the draft this year to add to that defense. And so J. Lou, man. And then on top of that, defensive coordinator Don Martindale, if you remember, the last 10 years he's been with the Ravens. And so what did the Ravens do a lot? Cover zero blitz, a lot of zone blitzes. Matter of fact, they blitzed 32.5% of the time last year, which was 5th most in the NFL, with a lot of multiple fronts, different looks, 3-4 multiple packages. So Jay Lou, let's talk about these Giants, man, in week 1. It's a tough game to open up with a new head coach with a mindset of wanting to toss the ball around the field.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, man. You get a brand new coaching staff that you got film on, but you don't have film on. I mean, we played Buffalo. We might have been in the same division. We feel like we played them the last 3 years. So you kind of got an idea, but, there's only one Josh Allen. So to your point, I agree with that. I think that you see the Giants, the first half of the season, try to lean on Saquon if he's ready. And I know that sounds weird because Buffalo didn't run the ball a lot. Kansas City runs it when they need to, but I think you see them try to mix in some play action and use Saquon a little bit until they can get it up to that high octane level. And the Giants had a sneaky decent defense last year.
They did.
Especially their D-line. Now I'm not sold on their DBs. I think that's where they struggled. I know they let the Bradbury go, and then I think cornerback 1 for them is Adoree. So I like my chances going at him if he's in man to man. But yeah, a lot of fans talk about the Titans not getting the national spotlight, the national attention, et cetera, et cetera. If you really look at the schedule, and we're going to break it down over the next couple of weeks or whatnot, a 3:25 kickoff means there's only 1 or 2 other games on at that time, and your game is going to be shown in the New York market. So, a lot of folks like to look at the primetime games we got, but to start looking at some of the start times, because I think it's weird this year that half of our games start at noon. Mm-hmm. Like only 8 games start at noon.
That's unusual.
That's very unusual because that thing is 12 o'clock down for the most part. So, but good way to get a home opener before you have to. One thing about Vrabel, he takes it a game at a time.
Right.
He's not going to overlook, because right now the big marquee game for the NFL is that next week. When you got to go Monday Night Football. So you want to make sure that they settle in. And again, the only thing I like our front 4 against that offensive line. And I think G. Witt brought it up a few minutes ago that if our defense comes like we expect them all to come, they're going to have us in every game on this schedule just because they can get after the quarterback. And Danny Dimes is sneaky speed he will get himself in trouble. So you want to try to, still confuse him. He's a young guy. So if we can kind of confuse him or whatnot, and you don't want this game to be 10-13 going into the 4th quarter, because then I don't like your chances. So this is one of those games. It's always games on the schedule where you say you got to put the teams away early. This is one of those games where opening kickoff weekend, you go out and make a statement and show that, hey, we still are the number 1 seed in the AFC for a reason.
Yeah. Right. And G. Witt, I'm gonna get Virgil's question real quick or his statement. He says Danny Dimes holds onto the ball and our front 4 ain't having it. And I totally agree with you, Virgil, that he holds onto the ball a lot. And so I think we'll have a chance to get there. And the offensive line, I don't think they did enough. And if I look at their receivers they have, I really don't see anybody that could really scare us or we couldn't handle. And so, G, well, let me have your take on the Giants in that week 1 matchup.
Well, as I've said this earlier in the week and everything, the key for me is that even though the head coach comes from Buffalo always tried to establish a running game. They just never had running backs. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use Saquon Barkley, because he's to me is the X factor in this game. And the team has got to be ready for him. It's going to be a good test for our defense. I agree with you. I don't think they did enough on their offensive line to really help. But at the same time, their skill player in Saquon Barkley made the offensive line look good. It's almost like watching Barry Sanders back there with some of the moves that he makes. The question is going to be, can he come back from that torn ACL? Mm-hmm. He's had ankle injuries too.
Back to back, yeah.
That's going to be the issue for him. Danny Dimes, yeah, he could run. But I think one thing we noticed about our defense, if they come to play like they did last year, as they progressed towards the end of the season, quarterbacks were really not running against us. Even though they had opportunity, they really were not, because we had good coverage on making sure the quarterback, we were disciplined in the fact that the front 4 were getting there and maintaining their lanes. Whereas, in some cases you saw players would get out of their position or whatever the case may be. But the one thing that probably bothers me more than anything else, you know who the backup is for
Tyrod Taylor.
Yes, sir. Taylor. Again, we cannot get away from this guy. So I agree with the fact that offensively, they don't really scare me that much outside of Saquon Barkley. But I will say defensively, yeah, they're pretty sneaky and they're good. And I just don't know what our offense is going to be able to do. You can run on them. I will say that.
Oh, yeah.
You can run on them.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a matter if, again, I go back to the skill players. Go back to both of them. Jay Lou said the offensive line, can they maintain their consistency in blocking and giving Tannehill time? And can the receivers prove themselves to be dangerous? That's going to be the whole key for our offense. So it's going to be an interesting game. I'm not counting. I'm like you. If it's closer in the fourth quarter, the thing you got to hope for is your defense gets turnovers this year. I would say that's the one thing we were missing last year with turnovers. So if they can get turnovers and flip the field for us and everything, and we cannot turn the ball over, I think we win. I think we win this one hands down.
Yeah, and to your point about running, they were the 25th rush defense last year. Like I mentioned, though, they call him Wink Martindale. He's a heavy blitz guy, but I don't think he has the type of defense as of right now. The front four is pretty good. The secondary, Jay Lou, to your point, I agree. You got Adoree as cornerback one, and we'll have to see about the rest of the guys back there. But I'm going to get a couple of these comments in. So Mikey Jones, I agree with you, Mikey. Appreciate the comment, man. Hope we don't play down. And, the Titans in the past have played down to a level of competition. We saw that a few times last year. Will says Danny Dimes also gets caught by the turf monster. So right.
He'll never live that one down.
So right, man. But a franchise coming in with 5 consecutive losing seasons in the Giants, so they have nothing to lose. They want to prove that they're better, and they're going to see the Titans as a huge test early on in the season. So Week 2, you already kind of alluded to it. Another Monday night matchup against the Bills, probably one of the best games last year as far as in the NFL, especially on Monday night. You had a nail biter down to the end when the defense makes a 4th down stop on the 1 yard line and wins the game. Big Jeffrey Simmons. They still say that Josh Allen slipped, but you all know that he had that guard in the backfield, right? The guard was in the backfield. And Buffalo comes in. Again, like I said, another matchup against the Titans on Monday night, back-to-back seasons where they were beat in the playoffs by Kansas City, and you don't know how that's going to affect, especially after this last year, how they got eliminated from the playoffs. He had the number 1 defense overall last year, 5th on offense. They add Von Miller in free agency to a vaunted defense already, right, guys? And then they draft Kair Elam from Florida, 6'2", 187, one of the best DBs coming out, 4.45 guy, to pair with Tre'Davious White. They got he's coming off ACL injury too, so it's yet to be seen what he's going to be able to do. And Jay Lou, they add James Cook out of Georgia, Dalvin Cook's little brother, to the backfield, right? Versatile back with great ability to run routes and good quickness and speed. And of course, they solidified the offensive line with Sappho. They picked him up, and they also picked up Quisenberry. And Jameson Crowder as a receiver for the slot to replace Cole Beasley, and then O.J. Howard as another tight end to go with Dawson Knox. So Jay Lou, Buffalo Bills, Week 2 on the road this time, and on Monday night, man, big matchup, big test again for the Titans in this offense. Can they come out on top again?
Buffalo is the pick for everybody's Super Bowl.
Sexy
pick. That team's loaded. Josh Allen has grown into his own number 1 defense. Adding, Von Miller's he's just chasing rings now. See how many he can get with different teams. Exactly. I'm not mad at him with that. And you got to go to Buffalo. So those the mafia is gonna be real well in doubt.
Payback, right? That's what they talking about.
By this time come around, and they hate the Titans all the way back to the Music City Miracle. Then last year he slipped, etc. So this has really become one of the marquee games for the NFL. Right. One thing I'll say about the Bills, because that team's loaded. I mean, we know that. I think we all can attest to that. Number 1 defense can be ran on.
Yes, sir.
And Derrick Henry likes to run on the Bills. So this is a game that I think you'll see the Titans, if that offensive line is rolling, that we lean heavy on the run. And you want to just try to you want to minimize Josh Allen's possessions he's had. Josh Allen's going to do what he do. I mean, he's going to run. He's going to throw for 350, 400 yards. But, it's a lot easier to let him throw for 400 and they kicking field goals.
Right.
And I think that's the big testament to this team is this defense. If they could just protect that the 20 from the end zone to the 20, the red zone. We always call it the bend but don't break defense. And we've seen that a lot with the Titans. So I think this is one of those games, again, that you got to block the outside noise. Now, this is the only game maybe on the Titans schedule. I had it in my notes, but this might be the only one where we're playing a team that's got a longer bye, because the Bills actually kick off the NFL season on Thursday, and then they don't play again to that following Monday. So they got that built-in mini bye that some of these teams have, extra preparedness. But that's just a little quirk in the schedules. But again, I think it's should be a very good game. We saw last year, especially when the Titans went on that murderous row, some of those primetime games, they really play up to
That's
competition.
Right. That's right.
So, if it's one thing we said about Vrabel, this team's going to travel, and they travel well. So, I'm looking for a great game on that Monday night.
I'm in agreement with you. It's going to be an interesting game, and I will say this: you can tell the mark of a good team when people start plucking your players. When they get released and everything. I mean, Sappho goes to Buffalo, Quisenberry goes to Buffalo, Daquan Jones goes to Buffalo. I mean, everybody's trying to get in there, and Buffalo's trying to do whatever they can to win a ring and everything. But I just think a couple of things, like you said, J. Lou, you still can run on them. That Kansas City game showed that they do occasionally, the coaches do have mental
lapses, right?
Mental diarrhea. That's what I'm going to call it. Because you played Patrick Mahomes great the whole game, and all of a sudden on the last drive you decided to go into a prevent. So you just screwed it up. But let's just be honest about it right now. Again, I think it's going to be a good test for our defense. See how much better we are in the passing game, because you got Stephon Diggs, who usually lights us up pretty well. Although we have done a pretty decent job of keeping him out of the end zone, as you say, 20-20, and we shut it down after that. But we give up some big plays in that regard. It's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to stop Josh Allen from running. I mean, he's their best running threat. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And it's just going to be one of those games, man. It's like last year. You just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, last year came down to the last play on the 1 yard line, and they ran into a brick wall with our boy Big Jeff. But I just don't know how this was going to pan out this early in the season. I think, in all honesty, I said it when I saw the schedule come out. I think they're trying to set Buffalo up so they can get this game out the way early. It kind of reminds me of what went on in college with UT and Florida. They got tired of Florida beating them, so they moved the game up, and hopefully Tennessee will be in better shape than what they were when they played Florida in October. So I think that's what the NFL is doing with this game. So it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. But it should be a good game. Again, this is one of those that's going to be a good test for our defense and a great test for our offense, because that defense is going to be solid. Leslie Frazier will have them ready to go. Again, I think, and we don't have A.J. Brown, who really turned it out on him in the second half last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out.
Yeah, and like I said, the number one overall defense, and they add Von Miller to that defense already. It's going to be tough. But I agree with you, J. Lou. The Beast loves Buffalo's defense. He loves running the football on that defense for some reason, and I think that's going to be the deal breaker there. If the run game can get going, because they gave up over 100 yards a game last year, if the run game gets going, I think we see Buffalo have an issue stopping the Titans. And so 2 weeks, you have both New York, well, 2 of the 3 New York teams come, one here and one on the road, and you go week 3. You're back at home versus the Las Vegas Raiders, 10-7 last year, eliminated from the playoffs in the wild card round by the Bengals. New head coach Josh McDaniels finally left the Patriots after threatening to do that so long the last few years and whatnot. He inherits an offense that was 11th overall, 6th in the past, 20th against the rush, 18 scoring. And he also gets one of the best, if not the best, overall receiver in the game, Devontae Adams, to add with Hunter Renfrow, another good slot receiver. Keenan Cole, which they picked up in free agency. Darren Waller, one of the most athletic tight ends in the league. Still got Josh Jacobs, who was 15th overall running the football last season, and Jameer White, Zeus, out of Georgia. And then on defense, Patrick Graham, his first year defensive coordinator, he is called, otherwise known as the Black Picasso, by his players because of the awful plays he draws up. on defense. And so Rob Ryan is senior assistant, so you kind of already know where this is going, right? A lot of exotic defense, a lot of exotic looks, blitzes. And so G Witt, man, let's talk about the Raiders. Another matchup that's going to test our secondary with Carr and company coming in.
Yeah, I will say this, and and that may be just it just may be my mentality with them, but I think Josh McDaniels is the X factor in this one. I just don't see him really doing much. I think he's more. I don't look at him as head coach material. Mm-hmm. I think he's better as an OC. He might do well with what he's got. I mean, no doubt about it. The Raiders got a good offense. They got a really good offense. Their defense is good also. I mean, Max Crosby, Chandler Jones. This pass rush, Max Crosby is a monster, man. I just give him his props. I did not know they had Rock Ya-Sin that came over there from the Colts and everything. All of this is going to be pretty interesting. This is going to be one of those games where, the last few times we played the Raiders, we've only beaten them once, and they had a lot of injuries that year. So this is early in the season. It's going to be interesting playing in Vegas. Like I said, I just think Josh McDaniels is going to do something that's going to screw the game up for him, and that's how we come out with a win. It's just me. Yeah, like I said, I could be wrong, but that's a talented team, man. They're going to be, and you saw that last year. They're going to be tough to beat, man. They're going to be tough to beat.
And they add Devontae Adams, J. Lou. I mean, to an offense that was already pretty prolific before him. Like I said, with Waller and Josh Jacobs, and now you add a legitimate alpha receiver, right, to the mix. And then you got a defense that now has Max Crosby, who had 8 sacks, and Chandler Jones, who had 10.5, which he had 5 against us.
In one game.
That's what I'm saying.
So Jay Luke, man,
him again.
Right. And so Virgil asks, will the Raiders run their Gruden offense or change to McDaniels? You see McDaniels, his handprints all over this offense by any means. I think you'll see some gimmick plays. You'll see some of the quick bubble screens. But Jay Luke, talk about these Raiders, man, and what can we expect? Third week of the season here in Nashville, another tough matchup.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that this one's the third week and not like week 13 or 14 when they got time to gel. They always say the NFL season don't start to like week 7, 8, somewhere in there. Halfway through, because you got to get those teams to gel. So we could be catching them. I don't think the Raiders team you see week 3 will be the same you see to the end of the year.
Right.
Devontae Adams is, you still got Hunter Renfrow there, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right. Yep. That's right.
Who was like a security blanket for Carr. One thing, Carr's a decent quarterback. I like David Carr. I like him, but he can get you beat. He's got the gunslinger mentality sometimes. Now he's got a receiver that can pair it up, but Carr's not Aaron Rodgers. Right. I just want everybody to remember that. So Devontae Adams that you've seen in Green Bay might not necessarily be the Devontae Adams you see in the silver and black. But this game is, again, what better way to – the schedule sets up at the beginning of the season for us to lean on what every Titans fan says is the strength of our team, and that's the defense. Because you go from that Buffalo offense, vaunted offense, to the Raiders, which, again – the Raiders is a scale down, but they still can put up 550 yards of offense quickly.
Right.
And they have a better run game than Buffalo when you look at Jacobs and what he can do in the run game. So it's going to be it's an interesting matchup for the Titans. I agree with you, G Witt. So you're not on that island by yourself. I just feel like some of Belichick's coordinators should stay in the coordinator role.
Yep.
Look at my guy, Matt Patricia. There's a reason he's back. There's a reason McDaniels didn't leave forever. Some of them ain't. Just how we say that Vrabel's not cut out to be a coordinator. He's cut out to be a head coach. These guys are the opposite. So I kind of agree with you that I think there's one or two things in this game that Vrabel's going to out-coach him on I think will be the difference in the game. Yeah. But, when you look at it on paper, again, you talking about a Raiders team that can easily compete for the AFC West Championship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the difference in this game is going to be the front line. I think the ability of the front four to get pressure on Carr without sending extra bodies. I think that's what the difference of the game is going to be. If that front four can continue to make pressure on quarterbacks with just those four, I think that's where we see us take over and control the game. Because like you said, early in the season, they're still trying to develop their chemistry. And also early in the season, Derrick Henry is going to come out and we're going to be, featuring the run more just to get everybody in the groove. So another tough matchup though, man. You like the test though. 2 weeks in a row, you got two prolific offenses that the Titans are really going to be tested. And, you're really going to see a lot's going to be said about Christian Fulton and if Caleb Farley is over there or McCrary and Molden, those guys and Byard. It's a lot's going to be said about this defense in those first 2 weeks with these two offenses that we got to face. And so week 4, man, golly, at Indy, Indy finished 9-8. They crumbled down the stretch, but out is Carson Wentz, traded away to the Commanders. They brought in Matt Ryan, and they still got Jonathan Taylor, who rushed for over 1,800 yards last year and 18 touchdowns, was led the league. Michael Pittman Jr. and receiver out of Cincinnati, Alec Pierce. They were referring to him as the next Jordy Nelson. If you remember anything about Jordy Nelson, of course he played with Aaron Rodgers, but Jordy Nelson was a bad dude. He was big, he could run, he could catch. And they're saying this kid can do a lot of those things. They drafted for depth on the O-line and the D-line. If you look at their draft picks, the offensive line is still stout, still coming back intact. And so, J. Lou, man, the Colts, division rival, they added Yannick Ngakoue with 10 sacks last year with the Raiders. Rodney McLeod is signed as a safety from the Eagles. And, of course, they brought in Stephon Gilmore. Now, this is not the same Stephon Gilmore that will lock people up man-to-man coverage. He's a little older now. He's had some injuries he's battled with, but he's still, a high-level skill, right? High-level DB, J. Lou. So let's talk about these Colts, man. A division game early with a rival team and a team that was nipping at our heels a lot last year.
Yeah, the NFL scheduling guys definitely hate the AFC South. Oh, let me rephrase it. They hate competition in the AFC South because, again, for the second year in a row, they put both of these games before Halloween and be done. And these are probably the best two teams in the AFC South. Mm-hmm. All you've heard, if you've listened to any chatter from Indy all summer, that their owner hates the Titans. And he had a meeting after the game and also, he's got that one circled. It's there in Indy. Don't be surprised they do honor somebody at halftime from the old Indy team just to have the crowd extra juiced up. And we're going. This is this will be I'm glad it's week 4 because this to me is the mental block game for Derrick Henry because you go back to the scene of the crime where you hurt your knee at. You've heard everybody complain about that turf and how that is up there. Truth be told, we should manhandle their front four without defense. Their offensive line is great, but I just think something in the middle of that line we can get to. Matt Ryan is a significant upgrade from Carson Wentz.
Absolutely.
But Matt Ryan can be a statue as well.
Slow. There you go.
Yeah, so that's the one difference where, and again, receiver-wise, they don't scare us. Now, Michael Pittman, for some reason, he had some good games against us, us Titans, but they don't really have the skill set to scare you from there. So this is a slugfest game because again, you got the battle of the top two backs in the league, and it's just whose defense can stop who. So this is a game, you want to get the division wins. You want to go undefeated in division. That the Colts are going to be juiced up for the fact that if they just get one of these games last year, they might can sneak into the playoffs. And Carson Wentz, gave us a gift on that one in Indy when he threw that pick in the end zone. So it's going to be a tough game. And again, it's wedged right after a hard battle with Las Vegas. And again, Matt Ryan can throw the ball around. This is another one, G-Wit, that I'm going to put in that Raiders category you just said. Because Frank Wright will coach himself out of the game.
J. Lou, I don't mean to interrupt, man, but how many times did me and you text back and forth that we appreciate him that he stopped running Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. He is definitely good. He can get too cocky where he will coach himself out of the game and let us get on back in. I can see that happening in this one.
Hey, G Witt, before you go, man, I'm gonna bring up this name because this name is a familiar name if you've been watching football for the last 10 or so years. The new defensive coordinator is Gus Bradley, right? Famous for the Legion of Boom. You know, he was the head coach at Jacksonville. That didn't work out. He got fired, but he was the head coach of the Legion of Boom in Seattle. I mean, defensive coordinator, excuse me, when they had that defense out there. And so you already know what he's going to do. He's going to rush. He's going to play some zone coverage. He's going to play some cover 3. He's going to play some cover 4. And that's the type of defense that he likes to play. And they got some cornerbacks that can do those things. Kenny Moore II, he's a good zone cover guy. And we already talked about Stephon Gilmore. He's probably more of a zone guy now more than he was previously because he was a man guy. And so just because he's been in the league so long and battled some injuries. But G Witt, man, it's going to be a tough game up there in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and like you said, first of all, the owner has circled these 2 games, you know, since the season was over with last year. So, you know, Frank Wright and his whole staff, they know they have to win at least one of these games, if not both, or they may not be there next year. I'm sure he's told them.
Yes.
So you're going to see a different coach team and a different mentality from the coaching staff when we play them in September. The thing about it is Gus Bradley doesn't scare me as much because if you remember anything about Gus Bradley's defense, they're all fast, they're all quick, but they're all extremely light. And the problem they have with those defenses is the fact that you can run on. If you got good, strong offensive line play and a good, strong running back, you can definitely out physical them. And that's the thing I think is going to be different. Now, don't get me wrong, their defensive line is coming back from last year. You know, Kwity Paye may be back in full effect. You know, he may be healthy this time because he missed the first game we played against them. But it's going to be interesting to see. Matt Ryan, the question with him is going to be, don't get me wrong, Matt Ryan's a bad boy, especially in the regular season. But the one thing about it, if we keep the game close, you know Matt Ryan's going to make a mistake. He makes mistakes in close games. He always has, you know, because he takes it upon himself to try to win the game by himself. And then you run into those issues. So I think, like you said, Jay Lou, the problem they got with the offensive line is not that they're not good. It's not that they're not great, but they're getting older. And one of the problems you run into with getting older, they don't have enough depth on their offensive line. So if you start rushing them, what we saw last year in both games, really, that our defensive line could get to them, and we weren't even completely healthy at that time. When we were in the game that we were healthy, you know, Carson Wentz had problems. So you can see the same thing happening again if we're healthy in that game and we got that front 7 is good to go. It's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a tight defensive game, but I give us the edge simply because as good as Jonathan Taylor is, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from him. Like you said, Frank Reich will go away from the run. He will go away from the run.
And not to mention that the Titans, the number 2 run defense in the league last year, only gave up 84 yards rushing a game. And so, a lot to be said there. I don't think it's been a while since we've been able to say the Titans were one of the top run defense in the NFL. I mean, you got to go back. You got to go back.
You got to go back for that one.
When you had the A-Town Stomp and those guys. And so that's first 4 weeks, guys, under the belt, man, tough matchups. And I know we don't predict records, man, but you hope you can be 2-2 out of those first 4 games.
Yes.
I mean, we'll take 3-1, but 2-2 is what we hope to see. Especially you got so many AFC games. One divisional game and then 2 conference games, man. It's just that's tough. When it comes down toward the end of the year and you got those tiebreakers that come into play for seeding and things like that. Man, it's just tough way to start. And then you play Indianapolis the first 4 weeks, like you said, Jay Lynn, you turn around and play them again in the next 3 weeks. And so it's just crazy. With an early bye week this year, fellas, instead of that week 13 bye week. And so, we have to see about how that plays out and for this team. But because last year we were in desperate need of a bye with all the injuries that took place on this team and this things how it was going with people's health and stuff. But this year you see a week 6 bye and so we'll see what happens, guys. But we appreciate y'all joining us tonight for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. So, G Witt, give me a prediction on. No, I'm just kidding.
I know you are. Now here's the thing about it, and I will say this, and like you said, Vrabel and that defense, the one thing they're huge on is stopping the run. Mm-hmm. They automatically tell you will not run the ball on us. And being the number 2 rush defense last year showed that. And I think that's one thing that we got going in our favor is that they're going to be focused on that. The key for us on defense really is going to be the secondary. Can they cover? Can they give the defensive line time enough to get there? Because what's going to happen with quarterbacks like Daniel Jones, all these quarterbacks, what they're going to be doing more than anything else, they're going to get the ball out quick. They saw those 11 sacks against Cincinnati. So their whole mentality is like quick passes, get it out quick, make the right decision, let it go. And you got veteran quarterbacks in all three, in 3 of the games, with the exception of and I give Daniel Jones being a veteran quarterback. I just don't know if he's smart enough. If their offense is going to be good enough for him to get the ball out quick. I won't say he's not smart enough. But Buffalo, you got Josh Allen, you got David Carr, you got Matt Ryan. All 3 are going to be able to get the ball out quick. We're going to have to be able to do something with that secondary to make them hold the ball a little bit longer.
We saw that when we played Buffalo last year, J. That Josh Allen was getting that ball out really quick, they changed the deep. Shane Bowen's gonna have his work cut out. He's really gonna earn. So you got to give him his credit last year for what he did to this defense, and I still think Jim Schwartz had a lot to do with this pass rush because you saw the wide 9 technique.
And Schwartz is still over there in the office.
He's still there, and so we hope it's replicated on the offense with Tim Kelly. Because, I was going to say this earlier, here, the chemistry is not the problem. The problem is Todd Downing on offense, to me. And so is he going to do a better job of play calling? Is he going to teach the receivers? Because, you go back and I hate to harp on last season, but you go back and you look at the loss to the Cincinnati Bengals when they were blitzing and nobody ran a hot route. None of the receivers ran a hot route. So is he going to make those adjustments? Is Tim Kelly going to be like, hey, this guy blitzes, you run this route automatically? It's an automatic check, right? And everybody else does except for our team.
That's the one good thing. I like a few things about it, the bye early. I wish it was like week 8, but that's one of the few good things about a week 6 or 7 bye is if you run into an issue where you need to make a change at offensive coordinator or something like that, you got the perfect opportunity to do it with a lot of football still left. If I'm not mistaken, when we pulled the plug on Marcus, that was week 7, somewhere in there after that game.
Week 6.
Somewhere in there. So, we know how that turned out at the end of the season. So that bye spot gives you an opportunity if you think it's going sideways to really correct your season right then. And again, he's on a short leash because you could easily slide Tim in there to be the offensive coordinator and not miss a beat. We saw the miracles he made in Houston last year.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it, too, when you stop and look at it. Todd Downing is going into his 2nd year, and historically, teams are taking a nosedive with him on his 2nd year. When you go back and look at his record as an OC. When he was with the Raiders, he had one.
I was going to say, so how much worse can it be?
Hey, I'm saying is this. You look at that offense last year, how bad it really was. But they always going to point out we went 11-5. We made some good plays. We went for the turnover. We would have been all right. Year 2, I'm telling you, we got to watch out for it. And to your point, J. Lou, bye week being week 6, being week 6, you might see a change.
And G Witt, you just said something that I hope the Titans aren't thinking over there. I hope they're not being distracted by the fact that we were 11-5, 12-5, whatever we were, and we had turnovers. Because if you take the turnovers away, the offense was so simple, I could stop it. Let's just be honest. So that's the one thing that you hope. When we saw the defense, we knew we needed players. We knew we needed that with Bo, and we gave him opportunity. You hope that the Titans don't get complacent with, okay, well, if we don't throw the picks, we still had this and due to the injuries and run the exact same offense. Something has to change for this team to go forward.
Well, running that same offense ain't gonna do you any good because everybody had it beat. It really. And when you stop and think about it, it's just that we had a lot of things to go our way, and all the injuries we had, you just had people step up that you weren't expecting. Yeah. But now, like I said, this year you don't have that. You only got one threat, and we've seen this before. Your only threat is your running back, and we've seen this happen before when Chris Johnson was there. We've seen it happen when Eddie George was there. Teams just started lining up and said, "You're not running the ball. What you gonna do?" Mm-hmm. And if we don't have other people step up and make themselves a threat, Todd Downing is not imaginative enough to create opportunities. He's just not.
And you say in year 2 he's known for his offense to go downhill. Well, shoot, Tannehill can't get no worse, can he?
Never.
I'm like, good
never
Lord.
Say that.
But yeah, so compare his last season stats to the previous 2. He had an awful season.
Oh, absolutely. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But
so Todd Downing
can't get worse. It can.
Here's the only thing. Here's the only thing I say why there's optimism is because they brought in Tim Kelly. And there's a different wrinkle. So there was nobody there last year that we know of that was in his ear saying, "Hey man, how about this? Or how about this? Or well, let's try this." We don't know for sure, but we know there is a senior assistant. I would do my quotations like a senior assistant. Now, passing game coordinator. That's his title. He's a passing game coordinator.
Yeah.
That should, right? Adjust. Hey, Jay Lou. If they blitz your man is lining up on you, you see a safety blitz, so you run this route or you run this. I mean, something, right?
Okay. I gotta say this, even though I hate saying it. You gotta remember Tannehill's years in Miami. What was the one thing we said he had an advantage up here that he didn't have in Miami? He had playmakers at all the positions.
That's right.
Now he does not. He only has a running back. And I'm sorry, until those receivers step up, Tannehill could be caught pressing, and you can see those turnovers increase. I'm a realist when it comes to the NFL, man. I'm telling you, I'm a realist.
We'll see.
I don't want to see it happen. Don't get me wrong.
I'm just saying, we'll see what happens.
I don't want to see it happen. I want him to come out and be like Tannehill, be even better than Tannehill of 2018, 2019. Yeah, I want him to be better than that when he was going all over the place and making good decisions. But I'm telling you, training camp, this was probably Tannehill's most important training camp he's ever been in.
Oh yeah, but we won't know until we see the offense on the field.
And he's definitely going to have to shut out all the noise. He can't be on there. He can't be on Twitter, Facebook. He can't be listening to the radio, podcasts, nothing. Because I'm telling you, like you said, J. Lou, when he makes his first interception and people start yelling, "Put Malik Willis in," and all, he can't be listening to that. It's going to drive him nuts, I'm telling you.
So thank y'all again for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie Harnell, G with J. Lou.
Appreciate the comments,
the questions, the support of the show, man. Join us next week. We'll go over that second quarter schedule. The Commanders, they got a new name. The Commanders, not the football team anymore.
Football team.
You got Carson Wentz. You gotta face Carson Wentz again. You got the bye week. You got Indy again, and you got the new look Houston Texans with Lovie Smith as head coach. And you know what he brings to the game, a defensive minded guy. So you already know where they're going to be tough at it, and it's across the defensive side of the ball. So again, join us next week, next Sunday. We'll be right here, man, talking about that second quarter schedule for the Tennesse Titans for the 2022 campaign. Eddie Arnell, G. Witt shaking his head, and J. Lou, man. We are Halftime Adjustments. We are out of here. Peace.